Say hello to a new friend on an old road. Take a two-lane trip of memories into mysteries unknown. Come along for the ride. Jim Hinckley's America. Jim Hinckley's America.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Hey, had a great day yesterday here in Kingman, Arizona. Route 66 Fun Run returns after a 2-year absence. More than 30 years people have been getting their kicks on Route 66 here in western Arizona. Don't have the exact number, but I imagine close to 900 vehicles were registered for the event, and there's probably another 100 or two people who just showed up and tagged along. Doesn't get much better than that. Road trip, Route 66, tremendous landscapes, time capsules with wheels, and good friends. Yes, sir, Bob, that's what it's about. Hey, today we're going to be talking about Route 66 road trips. And so it's fitting that we give a shout out to our good friends there at Route Trip USA, the ultimate road trip adventure planning service. Yeah, for great odysseys in the United States or Canada. These folks, just like us, they test the pillows, they taste the enchiladas, and they tell people where to go. Hey, today we're gonna continue our discussions about Route 66. Today we're going to talk a little bit about travel planning, and let's set a timeline. If you're a seasoned Route 66 quote roadie, or you're just been contemplating, dreaming about a Route 66 adventure, well, let's see if we can get you on the road this summer. Start with a couple things you're going to need. Two that will ensure that you have a great trip. One of the most amazing things about Route 66 is it doesn't exist. It hasn't existed since about 1985 as an official U.S. highway. So it's a series of truncated county roads, state roads, scenic byways. So how do you find the road? Well, I got two things for you. The Easy 66 Guide by Jerry Mcclanahan. It's a throwback to the 1950s. This very, very accomplished artist has created this flipring book that'd be more at home in the 50s. Very popular, and even as many times as I have traveled Route 66, I still carry a copy of the Easy 66 Guide. And then in the modern era, we have Route 66 navigation app developed by Touch Media, the folks there with Maury and Pavel. The app is updated often. It's probably one of the best guides you're going to have. It's got offline capabilities, has the options for you to kind of customize your own trip using the app. You can find out more about the app at route66navigation.com. Highly, highly recommended. And while you're at it, when you're getting your Route 66 navigation app, check out the Mother Road Route 66 Passport. I highly recommend that as well. Thank you. We'll get to your questions here in just a few minutes. And because this is it's an interactive program. And that means it's always best with our audience joining in. I mentioned on Wednesday's program about using an event to enhance the trip. Well, consider this. National Road Trip Day. The official proclamation will be in Kingman, Arizona on the evening of May 27th. Going to be quite a little block party downtown. Kingman Main Street's going to introduce the narrated historic district walking tour that I've been helping develop over the course of the past 18 months or so. And then on Saturday the 28th, there's going to be a fun little Route 66 cruise on up to Seligman, Arizona, stops at Antares Point, Hackberry General Store, Grand Canyon Caverns, and of course, Seligman. It should be a great day, and that should get your feet wet, give you an incentive, if you will, to get that road trip underway. Another thing we got coming, if you want to join us, we've got a Route 66, our fall Route 66 tour. Things are still in the formative stages, but we could possibly arrange to make it a tour. You could join us. I'll be speaking at the Miles of Possibility Conference in Pontiac, Illinois, and I'll be speaking in Atlanta, Illinois on October 18th. So, now, how do we put together a trip? Well, you might start with social media. Check out the historic Route 66 Facebook page. It's a good forum for people asking questions, sharing travel advice, and planning a Route 66 trip. And if we start at the west end of Route 66, one of the questions that comes up often, of course, traffic. That's a real problem, but you can beat that as well. I'll get more to that in a second. The other is lodging and expensive lodging in Southern California, and there's a way to beat that as well. Now, beating the traffic. If you drive it on early Sunday morning, I have done photography along Route 66, Foothill Boulevard, Colorado Boulevard, through the Los Angeles metro area. And if you do it early Sunday morning, 6, 7 o'clock, traffic is light enough. I've often stood in the middle of the street and taken pictures. I've never found a good time to take from downtown Los Angeles out to Santa Monica, along Santa Monica Boulevard through Beverly Hills. The original western terminus of Route 66 is downtown Los Angeles, the Theater District. You've heard me talk about that on several occasions. Lodging recommendations. Here's a thought. Another way to beat the traffic is they have a great light rail system in the Los Angeles metro area that is expanding and growing all the time. Much of that you can travel right along parallel to the Route 66 corridor using light rail. And for lodging, check out the Saga Motor Hotel in Pasadena, California. Relatively budget rates. Tell them you're traveling Route 66, you get a bit of a discount. As a bonus, the motel is a pure 1950s, almost like a movie set of what you expect to see in California in the 1950s. Swimming pool, palm trees. It's not a 5-star resort by any stretch of the imagination, but it's clean, centrally located, a couple blocks from a light rail station, and you got a diverse array of restaurants within walking distance. Of course, you can always holler at me. I try to answer questions as much as I can about road trips, travel. We have a lot of, because of the fun run yesterday, I've received a lot of questions for this program about Kingman. Well, you have to do a bit of planning. For example, the Powerhouse Visitor Center is closed on Sundays, and they don't like to allow tours much after about 3:45 in the afternoon. But it's a good base camp, a good place to start Route 66 exploration in Kingman. Even if they are closed, it's a good jumping off point. You have Mr. D's across the street, Locomotive Park, and soon we will have this narrated historic district walking tour up, which you can travel at your own pace, midnight or at noon, whichever you prefer. That's going to be something we can discuss in a future program, is about Kingman. The stretch along Route 66 from the Colorado River up to Crookton Road and I-40, Partridge Creek Bridge, I get a lot of questions about this stretch of road. And arguably, in my humble opinion, it's one of the most scenic sections of Route 66. Lots to see, lots to do. And the drive through Sitgreaves Pass up around Oatman on the pre-1952 alignment of Route 66 I really don't think a one-eyed blind man can take a bad photograph. Absolutely, absolutely wonderful out there. Check out also when you get your navigation app, it's got a section on points of interest. I'm really honored that I helped develop that. But food is a big part of the Route 66 experience. And when my wife and I travel, we try to avoid chain restaurants. And we also, unless starvation is imminent, we avoid fast food restaurants. Just, we just do. Fortunately, Route 66 is aligned with great mom and pop diners and restaurants. Couple things you need to check these forums and check these message boards to get updates and reviews. For example, unfortunately, I cannot recommend the Ramada here in Kingman, Arizona, even though it is a 1964 Holiday Inn. It's a great historic Route 66 property. It's just I cannot, in good conscience, recommend this. I will not go into details, but I had a tour group there the other evening. Not good. But you can tell some of these places that have a great reputation because they're talked about often, and they are well known among Route 66 enthusiasts. For example, Clanton's Cafe, Veneta, Oklahoma. Well, that's one family owned since 1929. They're doing something right. The Ariston Cafe in Litchfield, Illinois. One family owned until a couple of years ago from 1927. Same location since like 1936. Great places. And of course, my website. It seems to be a continual work in progress. JimHinckley'sAmerica.com. I'm constantly sharing updates and from different locations along the road, recommendations for restaurants, motels, and museums. If you have any questions this morning, please feel free to type them in or call in, and we'll try to answer them for you. Planning a Route 66 trip, how much time do you need? It's half joking. I'm asked this question a lot, and I tell people I don't know. I've only been traveling Route 66 since 1959. I still haven't seen everything. And part of that's because the road's constantly changing. A great example is the Uranus Fudge Company and General Store, a relative newcomer just the last few years on Route 66. It has become a destination for Route 66 enthusiasts. It is a throwback to the 1950s, a quintessential roadside attraction, quirky, odd, and fun. Oklahoma, reach out to the Oklahoma Route 66 Association. They have put together a tremendous travel guide to Route 66 in Oklahoma. Most of your state associations, I shouldn't say most, but several of your state associations have put out excellent visitors guides. Illinois and Oklahoma specifically. New Mexico, the Route 66 Association of New Mexico, contact them before you make a trip. They've got some great planning guides, and they have put out a wonderful, wonderful magazine twice, 4 times a year, I believe it is. The membership is not, overly expensive. Missouri puts out a very nice magazine as well, the Missouri Route 66 Association. Lots of good travel planning advice there. They have a tremendous team. The Arizona Association, I get a lot of questions about Arizona travel information. They do put out an Arizona Route 66 passport, but to the best of my knowledge, they do have a, what would I call it, a summary guide. It's not overly detailed, but they do put out a guide that has highlights selected points of interest. These are all great materials that you would want to get to plan a Route 66 trip. And even, if you're a novice, you definitely want these materials. But if you have traveled, this is your first trip on the road, well, you definitely need these materials. It'll make your trip so much better. And don't be afraid to include a little detour or two. This is where I get into a little shameless self promotion this morning. I have a new book coming out this summer, and it's the back roads of Route 66, and it's little side trips, detours that will enhance your trip, like drive down Highway 19 through Steelville and check out Merrimack Springs Park. It's about 20 miles. Wallapai Mountain Park outside of Kingman, less than 15 miles. Pine forested oasis in a sea of desert, nice lodge, well worth checking out. So planning a detour or two. One that I just can't say enough about is the original Las Vegas, New Mexico. If you're headed westbound on Route 66, take the highway from Tucumcari to Las Vegas. I believe it's Highway 102. And it not only that's a 100-mile drive, absolutely incredibly beautiful drive up the Colorado, the Canadian River Escarpment, excuse me. And if the original Las Vegas is just 5 miles off the pre-1937 alignment of Route 66 that looped through Santa Fe, New Mexico, but the town is extraordinary. There's something like 2,000 buildings on the National Register of Historic Places, some dating to the 1830s. Two incredible classic hotels, both renovated. The Costanera from 1898, one of the original Harvey houses, and the Plaza Hotel down on the plaza on the Santa Fe Trail, built in 1882. See, these are the kind of things that you just really need to enhance the trip. As far as how much time you need for a Route 66 trip, at the absolute minimum, I suggest 2 weeks for a one-way trip. That's pretty much the absolute minimum. And if you really want to get if you really want to get carried away, you can easily spend 2 weeks on Route 66 just in from Chicago to St. Louis, and not even see half the stuff that's along the road. And of course, the big thing about a Route 66 trip is the people. That's really the essence. You know, Route 66 may not be our most historic, most scenic highway, but it's always had the best press and publicity. And the people involved with Route 66 are so passionate. It's got an infectious vibrancy to it. It just dramatically enhances your trip. Stop at the Wagon Wheel Motel in Cuba, Missouri. And the next morning, ask Connie to put on the coffee. Go down to the Cuba Bakery in Delhi, pick up some goodies, and just sit back. Visit with Connie and Charlie, and visit with the guests who come in to check out for the morning. It just it enhances your trip. This is another reason to avoid fast food restaurants, chain restaurants. You want to eat with the locals. You want to hoist a beer with the locals. And you want to strike up conversations with the people along the road, your fellow travelers. Guarantee it adds some real seasoning to the trip. Before we get wrapped up too far here, I want to answer some of these questions. I have a question here about the Benelli House in Kingman. You can get a museum pass down at the Mojave Museum of History and Arts for the Mojave Museum of History and Arts, the museum at the Powerhouse Visitor Center, and the Benelli House. The Benelli House is just four blocks off Route 65 blocks off Route 66 in Kingman. And it's really recommended. I can't say enough. The house has a lot of its original furnishings, and it's a very interesting from an architectural standpoint. And of course, the Benelli family has a Route 66 connection, several of them actually, one being the old Fig Spring Station at the bottom of the Sacramento Valley before you start to climb into the Black Mountains. Jack Rittenhouse, in his book, published in 1946, A Guide to Highway 66, he mentions the Fig Springs Station that was owned by the Benelli family. Ariston Cafe question. Unfortunately, Nick Adam has retired a few years ago. I guess he still pops in every once in a while. But I understand that the Ariston Cafe is in very good hands. They're carrying on the tradition, and the transition was almost seamless. But I have to admit a bit of prejudice. I just can't imagine the Ariston Cafe without Nick Adam. And I do hope to see him again this fall during our fall tour. Well, that's a good question, Rich. It's here in Kingman. If you do ask at the, well, Rich has asked if I'm available for walking tours, things of that nature. Well, one reason we're doing the self-guided walking tour is I travel and I have other engagements. You can contact me through Jim Hinckley's America. And we can schedule possibly a walking tour for you here in Kingman for your group. Well, that's a challenge. Yeah, in their defense, Rick, the powerhouse. They may have misspoken. I still live in Kingman, but I am available. So, in their defense, they may not have known that I was in town when you stopped and asked about the walking tours. But I do apologize for that misunderstanding. It's best just to reach out to me direct. Well, Jim, that's another good question we have for you here. There's several good, if you're just wanting Route 66, the Route 66 Museum and the Powerhouse Visitor Center in Kingman. That's a good museum. For my money, though, and it just so happens my coffee cup this morning is from the Route 66 Museum in Clinton, Oklahoma. And the Oklahoma Route 66 Museum is probably one of the best going, in my opinion. Great audio narration from Michael Wallace, voice of the sheriff in the animated film Cars. And down the road in Elk City, of course, the National Route 66 Museum. It's actually a complex with a ranch and farm museum, a rodeo museum. It's the Old Town Complex. That's another one. That's really a great Route 66 museum. Automotive museums. Well. Well, Mike, I can tell you that there's quite a few good automotive museums on Route 66. But if you have to stop at one, check out the Museum of Transportation just east of St. Louis. Really, really fascinating museum with cars, trains, planes, automobiles. That doesn't get talked about enough, and I can really recommend that one. We have time for a couple more questions, so if any of our guests have anything, or otherwise, I'll go through the questions I've received this week. Mark, let's see, how would we do that? Well, of course, Sidgreaves Pass. Mark has a question about great places for photography on Route 66. Well, Sidgreaves Pass, definitely in Arizona, is a must for photography. I would also say the Devil's Elbow in Missouri is a great place for photography. I would recommend doing it during the months of fall, a little bit of fall color. And that's just a beautiful, beautiful site for Route 66 photography. Another that comes to mind would be the pre-1937 alignment of Route 66 along below Glorieta Pass around Pecos, New Mexico. I think that would be really good. Well, my friends, it looks like we're running out of time. Good morning, Keith and Babe, and gosh, everybody who sent questions this morning, wonderful. Don't forget the programs are archived here on Podbean, and on the buttons are on JimHinkley'sAmerica.com. Join us Wednesday morning for a short little program of Wake Up with Jim. Got a couple things coming up for you. Of course, invite your friends. The program is always better when it's interactive. Sunday morning, 7 o'clock next week. Another episode of Coffee with Jim. One more shout out to our good friends at Route Trip USA. If you're planning a road trip in the United States or Canada, that's where it starts. Give them a holler. My friends, I want to thank you for joining us today. And, well, until we meet again, my friends, vaya con Dios.
Say hello to a new friend on an old road. Take a 2-lane trip of memories into mysteries unknown. Come along for the ride. Jim Hinckley's America. Jim Hinckley's America.
If anyone's in Kingman this morning for the Route 66 fun run, I understand there's going to be a roadie breakfast down at Rutherford's around 8:30 this morning. Well, take care, my friends. We'll see you soon. Adios.